Chapter 12 of Trino's Choice. Rosca. When Trino got up on Saturday, the whole house smelled like medicine. It always meant the same thing. Beto was sick. "You need to stay here with your brothers," his mother said, as she put Beto's empty medicine bottle into her purse. "The clinic is closed today. I'll have to take Beto to the hospital." Trino glanced down at his little brother, who lay on the sofa. His small brown face was wet with tears, and slimy green stuff dripped from his nose. He made little honking sounds as he tried to breathe. He sighed. If his mother went to the hospital, she could be gone all day. And she was. She didn't return until after 6. His mother was mad at the long time she had to wait. "And then the doctor wants me to buy this medicine that runs $20 a bottle. I told him I lost my job and he gives me 2 samples. What do I do when they run out?" Beto smelled like puke and pee. His mother took Beto, put him in her bed, then flopped down beside him to sleep too. "Guess there won't be supper," Felix said with a shrug, and walked out of the trailer. Trino found some peanut butter to spread on some flour tortillas that weren't too hard. He gave one to Gus before he ate 2 himself. He'd been edgy all day, thinking about meeting Rosca, hoping there wouldn't be anything more than putting a crowbar into a few machines. He tried not to remember Mr. Epifanio's face or the bloody pipe that had landed near him. He tried not to hear Lozana's words in his head. "Rosca beats up kids and old men for kicks." He kept telling himself that he had to take the job and help his mom out. What else could he do? Since Trino no longer looked for Rosca to jump him around every corner, he took off and started walking the neighborhood. He lost track of time as he passed his school, walked around the park, and even walked to Templano Street to check out the car wash. The car wash didn't face the busy street, but came to a V towards the corner, then fanned out, with 4 stalls on each side. The walls were tan brick, and the trim a clean-looking blue. There was only one stall that had been spray-painted, a series of black tags from a local gang. Several stalls had people washing their cars, while another 3 cars were being vacuumed under the drying shed in the back. It seemed like a busy place. Why would Rosca want to meet here? As he saw the lights on the street lamps start to flicker and shine, Trino realized he'd been gone too long. His mother would probably chew him out, but at least tomorrow she could get Beto's medicine and buy some food. As he walked home, he decided he'd tell her that he found the money in the closet and that it had probably belonged to Garces, and it was theirs to keep since Garces owed them for all the food he ate. Now that he'd seen the car wash and he'd started to figure out lies to tell his mother, Trino was feeling good and confident about the night ahead. He was even whistling as he entered the trailer park. Immediately, he saw Nick's long car parked in front of the family's trailer. Gus was climbing on the hood with 2 other little boys. Inside, Trino saw Nick sitting at the table and reading a newspaper, just like it was his house or something. "What you doing here?" Trino asked him. "I'm looking for you," Nick said slowly, then looked up from the paper. He wore a blue uniform shirt with a sewn-on name tag over one pocket. A round red patch on the sleeve had silver initials SMU. Nick's black eyes passed over Trino from top to bottom before he said, "I got a job next Saturday cutting down some trees. You want to earn some money?" "How much?" Trino said. He wasn't going to work for a few quarters. Nick just raised an eyebrow. "Well, how hard do you work, boy? Hauling trees isn't easy. Think you could do it?" "How much?" Trino said again. "Could be $20 if you can help me get the job finished before it gets dark." He stood up from the table and moved towards Trino. Trino raised his chin to give the man a steady look, despite their difference in height. "How come you're asking me?" "A boy your age needs a little cash to spend. I remember how it was." Trino didn't comment, so Nick said, If I don't give you a chance to earn some money, you'll find somebody to steal it from, won't you? Trino forced his face and eyes to remain steady, even as peanut butter suddenly rose to his throat. His mother rushed into the room, sticking stuff in her purse and trying to comb out her tangled hair too. Her face looked very tired, yet she had plenty of energy to jump on Trino's case. Well, you finally came back. Where have you been? You just run out and leave Gus alone? Can't even find Felix. Do you know where he is? No, Trino said, then swallowed back the sour taste of his crummy supper. You stay with Beto now while I go to Sophia's and pick up some caldo. It always helps Beto when he's sick like this. She looked at Nick. Did you tell Trino he could help you next week? Then she looked at Trino. Nick needs you to help him. Says he'll pay you and everything. Why should I bust my butt hauling trees, he thought. Nick rubbed his heavy hand over Trino's shoulder. I'll tell you more about the job later. Right now I'm going to give your mom a ride to your tia's house. We'll take Gus with us. But keep an eye on Beto. That niño's pretty sick. Trino shook off Nick's hand and went to turn on the TV. He flopped onto the sofa as his mother and Nick went out the door. He frowned, trying to figure out what TV program was showing underneath a bunch of snowy lines shivering across the screen. He heard the rumbles of Nick's car slowly fade away and settled down on the sofa to wait around until he could take off. Felix finally showed up, bragging that he'd eaten 3 hamburgers at Nacho's house and went back into the bedroom and never came back out. A few minutes later, Trino heard crying sounds coming from his mother's bedroom. He better not puke on me, Trino thought as he slowly got up and went to check on Beto. The little boy was tangled up in his blanket as he whimpered and sobbed. Trino switched on a small lamp by the bed, then pulled the boy's legs free of the blankets. Beto's wet black eyes blinked at Trino, but they seemed unable to stay focused, and then rolled back into his head before they closed again. Trino's heartbeat sped up. Beto! Beto, it's Trino. Are you okay? He sat down on the bed and pressed his hand on Beto's little brown arm, only to pull it away suddenly. His little brother's skin was hot with fever. Trino touched the boy's slippery forehead, then put his hand on top of Beto's chest. Each rattling breath shook over Beto's body. Trino covered his little brother with the blanket, then went to get a wet towel from the bathroom. He had seen his mother put one on Beto's forehead before. It was all he could think of to do. He placed the wet towel on his brother, then gently brushed Beto's damp black hair. It's gonna be okay, Beto. Mom will be home soon. Trino sat down on the bed and kept talking to his brother. Soon you'll feel better and we can go play some video games. I'm gonna get some money tonight and I'll give you 2 quarters tomorrow, okay? It didn't take long for the towel to lose its dampness, so Trino wet it again in the sink, twisted out the extra water, and put it again on Beto's forehead. It started to bother Trino that Beto wouldn't talk back to him. He just lay there limp and wet. Trino felt raw inside. When I get money, you're going to get your medicine, Beto. I promise. And suddenly, Trino felt so mad that his mother was gone when Beto needed her help. Then he got madder when he thought about how she got fired from her job. He was mad that they had no money for Beto's medicine, and he was mad that somebody like Rosca was going to show him where to get some money. Why was everything getting worse and worse? By the time his mother finally got back from his tia's house, Trino had talked himself into a steaming anger that exploded as soon as she walked into the bedroom. He's burning up! Why'd you take so long? Trino got up and yelled right into his mother's worried face. You always have to talk and talk when you go to Tia Sophia's house. And Beto's so sick. Why didn't you come right back? She just pushed him aside and took Trino's place on the bedside. She put her hands on Beto's puffy cheeks and slipped one hand under the towel. All you did was put a towel on him? Why didn't you give him some medicine? Look, the bottle's right here. She reached under a pile of clothes by the bed and pulled out a skinny plastic bottle of pink pills. He's so hot. What, you want him to die? Trino's own fears only intensified the anger inside him. "I know, Doctor. I didn't know what to do," Trino told her, tossing his hands into the air. He turned to get away only to see Nick's tall body filling the doorway. He frowned down at Trino. "How am I supposed to find pills under her dirty clothes?" Trino yelled at Nick. "It wasn't like she had to ride the bus. She went in your junky car. How come you didn't come right back?" "I think you need to shut up before you get into more trouble." Nick's words slid out between his teeth. He raised one eyebrow at Trino. Yelling isn't going to help Beto. What if Beto died and everyone blamed Trino? Such a thought only made him madder. With a surprising rise of strength, Trino shoved Nick out of the doorway and left. "Trino, where are you going?" Nick called to him. "Come back here." But Trino didn't answer. He only started running. Out of the trailer, out of the parking lot, through darkened streets and alleys toward Templano Street. He had no idea of the time, but he knew a place where he could change his life. So he ran hard toward it. This change he needed so much. He cursed the barking dogs who rattled the fences he passed. He cursed the father who had died on him and the men like Garces who called themselves primos but were just bloodsuckers. He cursed the destiny that made Beto sick and his family poor. He was ready now, ready to do whatever it took to change his life, the life he hated, every painful moment of it. The night was hot and hazy, as his feet carried him over sidewalks, hard ground, and uneven streets in need of repair. Few porch lights were on, and many of the corner street lights had been broken out by rocks. His chest squeezed all the air out of him, but he didn't slow his steps until he could see the car wash up ahead. Not wanting to seem overly anxious, Trino stopped by the first stall of the car wash to catch his breath. Carefully, he looked around the brick wall. He caught the shine off Zipper's vest first, and he saw Rogelio moving behind him. Then there was Rosca, with his blue rag over his hair, and the two guys from yesterday's meeting. Suddenly, three faces were like a clear color picture in Trino's hand. It was those two boys who had been with Rosca and Mr. Epifanio's that day. They had been with Rosca when Trino got jumped outside Food Mart, too. And just yesterday, all three of them had thrown their cigarette butts at Trino's feet. And now his feet felt cemented to the spot where he stood. Trino could only watch Zipper and Rosca each jam a crowbar into a different vacuum. He heard metal breaking apart and a chorus of laughter. Out of the darkness came the first gunshot. Zipper dropped his crowbar. It clanged loudly against the asphalt. An old man in a red shirt stepped out from behind the dumpster. He cursed loudly at the boys. He gestured with a black pistol in his hand. Rosca raised the crowbar behind him like he was swinging a bat and lunged toward the old man. The other two followed Rosca's charge, but Zipper and Rogelio just stood there like dummies in a mall window. Rosca yelled. The old man yelled. Another shot came, another shot, another. Rosca fell, clutching his stomach, his blood spilling on the ground around him. The other two boys ran off, ran away. There was a loud scream. "No!" Zipper's voice. Zipper yelled again before he ran towards Rosca. That's when the old man aimed his pistol towards Zipper and fired again. Zipper slumped down, fell slowly to the asphalt. Rosca still squirmed on the ground, but Zipper never moved again. "No!" Trino's mouth opened, but his voice had been stolen away. Rogelio stood by the broken vacuum, sobbing. "No! No!" Sirens broke through the night. Red lights flashed off the car wash walls around them. Trino turned away from the scene, his back scraping against the wall until his bottom met the pavement. Sweat dripped down his face, but his hands and arms were too heavy to lift. He just sat there like a sack of dirty clothes. Sweat broke from every part of him. His head, his nose, even his pants were soaked. His eyes closed, blackness closing around him like a coffin. A rough shaking brought Trino around. He opened his eyes to a strange face. "What are you doing here, boy? Are you shot too?" "No!" Trino shook his head. He had to figure out where he was, what had happened. Suddenly everything rushed back into his mind. The guys' faces, Rosca's blood, and Zipper's last cry. "No!" His tears burned hot. "My friend is dead." "Come on, boy, get up," the man answered, grabbing Trino's arm. He jerked him up to a standing position. Trino couldn't get it together. Feeling confused, but at the same time, he remembered every detail. And the pain of what had happened and his role in tonight's events made his legs slide under him. The man jerked his body upwards before Trino hit the ground. Suddenly, the beam of a flashlight hit Trino's eyes. He raised his hand against the intrusion, blinking at the figure in uniform. "Good work, Joe. You caught one more," the policeman said. "Come on, boy. You're on your way to jail." Trino found himself getting dragged towards the collection of people standing under the metal drying shed. 4 or 5 police officers were milling around talking to the old man. The old man's face looked sweaty as his hands gestured from the vacuums toward the bodies on the ground. One officer had put the old man's gun into a plastic bag. Trino saw an officer handcuff Rogelio's hands behind him. Rogelio had a bad case of the shakes, still crying, "No, no, no." 2 guys with EMS emblems on the back of their shirts knelt between Zipper and Rosca, trying to check them out. One of them put a hand on Zipper, shook his head, then turned around to help work on Rosca. A taste of vomit rose in Trino's throat. The police officer pulled Trino in front of him towards the old man with the red shirt. "We got another one. One of the boys you said ran off," the policeman said. Now that he stared eye to eye at the man who shot Zipper, Trino spoke up in anger. "It wasn't me. I was just standing by the wall. It wasn't me, old man. Tell them." The guy squinted, gave Trino a look over, then turned to the policeman at his side. "I don't know. The other 2 who ran off had baggy shirts, like that one on the ground." He pointed towards Rosca. Relief started to slide the edge off Trino's anger. If he got away tonight, it was because of a weird luck. Beto's sickness and his mom taking too long with Tia Sofia had made him late. But for that, he could have been on the ground with a bullet in his gut. "It was him!" a hoarse voice called out. Rosca lifted a bloody hand and pointed at Trino. "That's the guy who planned this job. He gave us the crowbars, told us when to hit up this place. It was Trino."